House Bill 574, an act relating to elections. Representative Decker.
Gentleman from McCracken.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the lady from Shelby 58 for explanation of the bill and motion thereon.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the lady from Shelby for explanation of the bill and a motion thereon.
Mr. Speaker, I ask the clerk to report House Committee Substitute to House Bill 574.
Clerk, please report.
House Committee Substitute 1 to House Bill 574.
Lady from Shelby.
Mr. Clerk, Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of House Committee Substitute to House Bill 574.
Motions for the adoption of House Committee Substitute 1. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Those opposed, nay. House Committee Substitute 1 is adopted. Lady from Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe that most every member of this body would agree with me when I say that I think Kentucky was very fortunate to emerge from the 2020 election season as a leader in election integrity. Kentucky enjoyed a record-breaking turnout in the 2020 election, and that result caused many people in this room, many representatives, and many citizens to consider which, if any, of the emergency election procedures should be adopted into permanent law. Without new legislation, our law will revert back to the statutory framework for elections that occurred before COVID-19. I have been fortunate to work with Senator Branscombe and Senator Tipton. I'm sorry, not Senator, House Representative. And I should have said the county. The gentleman from Spencer and the gentleman from Russell. Thank you. To craft this a bill, the bill before you, and we had two goals in crafting this bill. One was to maintain and strengthen the integrity of our elections, and secondly, to breed more confidence in the voters that their vote was cast with integrity. We feel this bill meets both of those goals. To ensure that we had a wide variety of input on this bill, we have invited various experts, bipartisan experts, to submit lists of what they felt was most important to legislate concerning elections. We sought and received invaluable assistance from members of the Kentucky County Clerks Association. We met with this group repeatedly and talked with them extensively over the past month about what they believed encouraged voter turnout, increased the integrity of elections, and saved taxpayer funding to make procedures run smoothly without burdening our election officials. We also sought and received invaluable input from bipartisan members of the State Board of Elections. Again, we met and corresponded at times daily with the executive director of the State Board of Elections, and he provided us with a wealth of knowledge we needed to ensure the success of this bill. While I am the primary co-sponsor, I will tell you that it was so helpful that the representative from Russell is a former member of the State Board of Elections. We have met and corresponded extensively with the Secretary of State, along with members of his staff, all of whom were fully engaged in the drafting of this bill. We owed a debt of gratitude to that office for help in making this bill stronger. U.S. Senator Rand Paul submitted a list of items he considered most important for this bill, and we have received comments, polling data, and suggestions for this bill from various groups, including the Kentucky League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan public policy organization, from Secure Democracy, which is a nonpartisan organization that works with and educates policymakers and the public about how to ensure secure and fair elections, various constituents who read or heard about our working on this bill, and a professor of law from the University of Kentucky Law School. I'm certain that in the minds of every person who advised us and who worked with us on this bill, that drafting election law should not be a partisan matter. We consulted with people that we knew had a massive amount of experience in this field. We have not followed a political agenda in drafting this bill, and we hope that as you reviewed this bill, you have come to understand that it will create free and fair elections for our state from this point forward. Mr. Speaker, at this point, I yield to the representative from Russell 83.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Russell 83.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, lady. I rise here today in support of House Bill 574, and I want to take a moment to thank the lady from Shelby and the gentleman from Spencer for the opportunity to work with them on this bill. This sweeping piece of election reform has been a collaborative effort from the beginning. There are multiple bipartisan groups and individuals who deserve credit in facilitating this legislation in front of you today. And I have to take a moment to thank our county clerks, our Secretary of State's office, and the State Board of Elections for their input and knowledge, and we are grateful to them for their tireless efforts to uphold the security and integrity of our elections. And I also want to take a moment to thank the gentleman from Kenton 65 for his input and thoughts over the past few weeks. I mentioned during committee that when developing our work group, it was important for us as legislators not to steer decisions in one direction or another, but to take the time to just simply listen. Listen to our election experts on what worked well this past election and what are some things that should have been done differently and what were our lessons learned. Each group started with a list of items that they wanted to see implemented. There were commonalities between all groups, and those were the areas that we set on implementing and began to focus in on. And after over a month of back and forth and working on the intricate details, we have what is in front of you today. Over the past year, so much of our lives have been dealing with COVID, the impact it's had on our families, on our businesses, and our communities. And in this very body, much of our legislation has dealt with trying to help citizens of our Commonwealth. We can look back on the challenges we've endured in a negative light, or we can focus on the opportunity that has been provided to us today. This virus forced us to think outside the box on alternative ways in which we could safely and securely conduct an election. The success of that outside-the-box thinking is why we are here today discussing this piece of legislation. And as you've read through the bill, there's going to be questions on why there wasn't more time here or less time there. And that's okay, because everybody in the work group went through the same exercise and thought the same way. But what's important is that what you see before you today is not the product of one individual. It's not the product of one particular group. It's a product of the consortium of our state's election experts. And I hope that everyone can take comfort in that. We've got a great and a very rare opportunity before us all today to set a new standard on what our elections will look like going forward. It's a great step in the right direction, and I look forward to casting my vote in support of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back to the lady from Shelby.
Chair recognizes the lady from Shelby.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the lady from Jefferson 43.
Chair recognizes the lady from Jefferson 43.
Speaker, could you have the clerk call House Floor Amendment 2?
Mr. Clerk, please report.
House Floor Amendment 2 to House Bill 574.
Lady from Jefferson.
One of the things we strive to do is to have the homeless participate in our communities so that they can get their lives back on track with just a little bit of help. And what this amendment does, it allows them, if they have an address where materials can be mailed to them. That address can either be a shelter, a home, a church, but something that gives them some normalcy in participating in this great American endeavor, voting. So I request that we move. Motion to pass the House Floor
Question for the body
Amendment
is on passage of House Floor Amendment 2. Is there any debate or discussion? Lady from Shelby.
Mr. Speaker, I should have said that I consider this to be a friendly amendment.
Question for the body is on passage of House Floor Amendment 2. Is there any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. House Floor Amendment 2 is adopted. Lady from Shelby.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I move for the passage of the House bill as with the committee sub 574.